So there are basically two different types of Shyvana player. The first is the Wizard AP build, where you try and look as close to Harry Potter as you can get, spamming your one ability for high burst damage. The other is the Chad AD Shyvana build, where you have just as much burst, but your other abilities also do damage. Our player for today is one of the last remaining high elo AD Shyvana players, named Rizzhonel, Master tier on EU West. He started playing the game way back in Season 1 of League of Legends. He enjoyed the game, but decided to take a break from it for a while, to focus on other aspects of his life. In Season 7, he remembered his fond memories of League of Legends, and decided to give it another go. The changes to the game in 6 years were overwhelming, so he stuck with older, more familiar champions, mainly playing Irelia. In his first ranked season, he shot up to Platinum 2, and prepared for Season 8 to continue his climb. As you may remember, Season 8 was the Irelia rework, which ruined the champion for many old players. Rizzhonel was looking for a new main. In Season 8, he gravitated towards top lane once again, playing Riven, as he loved the mechanics of the champion. His secondary at the time was Shyvana, and he started to notice that he was having much more success with it than Riven, so he began to transition to his new main, and ended the season in Diamond 4. Season 9 began, and Rizzhonel began grinding away with his Shyvana, trying out all the possible builds he could think of, playing over 2,200 games of Shyvana total that season. This intense grinding ended up paying off in Season 10, where Rizzhonel committed fully to the AD Shyvana Top Build, and it finally brought him up to his goal of Master tier. Rizzhonel may be the player with the absolute most Shyvana games in a single season, and this has led him to develop an absolutely perfect playstyle to make the champion work in Season 11. I'm going to show you how he did it. First off, like many people, Rizzhonel thinks Shyvana is awful in lane. She does not have much poke to chip away at the enemy top laner with, and her all-ins before level 6 are quite poor. But Rizzhonel has created an AFK playstyle that allows him to get through laning phase with a lead by solving these problems, and get to the mid/late game powerhouse that AD Shyvana becomes. At level 1, Rizzhonel takes E. This is Shyvana's main way of picking up early CS in lane. Rizzhonel avoids taking a big fight level 1, instead walking far back behind his wave and picking up CS with the E. At level 2, he takes his W. Once again, this is not a great combat spell early game, so Rizzhonel is just biding his time. At this point, he is constantly moving in and out of the wave, baiting enemy skill shots and dodging them with the speed his W gives. This is the genius of the pick, and I will show you why. At level 3, he takes his Q and can finally begin to interact with his laner, but only for very short periods of time. Once again, he uses his W movement speed to bait enemy cooldowns, acting like he is not going to do anything, like he is just going to continue staying AFK behind his wave hitting CS. Once he's baited a big ability, for example their CC, he goes in for a very short trade with a combo of E, W, Q auto attack to pop his press the attack. His Q acts as a double auto attack, so press the attack is great on Shyvana, and his E also puts a mark on the enemy that deals percentage HP when you auto attack them. So this is a really strong early game combo, and it's the only way he's able to get a big advantage in lane. If he is below 70 HP in lane, he is incredibly cautious, knowing that at any point he is killable by a gank. For example here versus Camille, he decides to try an early trade, which goes badly, so he is dived by an Nidalee. He clearly learns from this, and in the next game against Gangplank, he is being poked down to 40%. You might think you could stay and pick up some more CS and a tower. Instead, he bases and TPs back on full health. And oh look, he would have gotten dived and lost a huge wave if he didn't follow this rule. Furthermore, if he is not interacting with the wave, other than to last hit, the enemy laner will always end up pushing it into him, letting him freeze the wave in front of his tower, which gives Shyvana the absolute necessary safety to avoid ganks, due to her not having a dash ability, so she doesn't want to push up. There's even a secret special advantage you get for doing lane Shyvana. If you're picking it, enemies will assume that it's AP Shyvana Jungle, because that's the most common one at the moment. So they'll either expect AP Shyvana, or more likely that some other player is going to your lane, which means they'll take the wrong runes. This really works even in Master. For example, this Sion game, the Sion took Magic Resist. This Camille game, the Camille took Magic Resist. And this Gangplank game, he took Magic Resist as well. This surprise factor makes your laning a lot easier. From here, he continues the cycle. AFK behind the wave, grab CS with your E, dodge skill shots with your W, and go for the shortest trades you can get. This is until level 6. At level 6, AD Shyvana power spikes massively. Since you're a lane Shyvana, you get level 6 much before a jungle Shyvana would, so you're hugely powerful very early. Not only do you get a whole set of new high damage abilities, you also get a massive amount of mobility to jump into fights, and mobility to escape from bad ones. In almost every matchup, Rizzhonel has a way to kill the enemy top laner. Firstly, check where the enemy jungler is on the map. Do not do anything unless you can find him. If you ult in and then get ganked, you have no way out. If the enemy jungler is far away, Rizzhonel goes for a kill. Against poke champions or ranged champions that are squishy, he thinks it's always best to jump at them with his ult. This lets you get right on top of them, auto-attack them once, which makes them auto-attack you back, and that locks them in place, so you can then press E on the ground, and they will always get hit by it. Same thing if you ult behind them, they will have to run through your E to get away, so you can guarantee the high damage from it. This damage on AD Shyvana early game is only a tiny bit weaker than AP Shyvana. The ability scales with both AP and AD at a reasonable rate, so really AP Shyvana is a bit of a waste in comparison. If instead you're against a fighter champion like Darius or Fiora who loves to take 1v1s, and they want you to be on top of them, Rizzhonel instead runs in as his human form, going for his usual trade. He can then ult to reposition, slowing the fight down, and giving himself time to poke with his E. Either the enemy will die to your E outranging them, run up to you and die to your E close range, or be really low HP and leave lane, ending the laning phase due to the XP and gold advantage it gives you over them. We are now into mid-game. At this point, Rizzhonel continues to lane, looking for more solo kills whenever he has ult, and sees the enemy jungler elsewhere. Rizzhonel takes TP so that he can join objective fights, or TP back to lane if needed. He can begin to join fights, but constantly make sure he is making the most out of having a side lane to farm. He is absolutely the most XP and gold addicted top laner I have ever watched, which does make sense because he is playing a dragon, and also Shyvana gets a lot of value out of her items. In fights, you can use your ult to dodge CC. It gives you unstoppable, by the way, so you can see here he uses it just as Nothook connects to dodge it, avoiding the danger and turning the fight. You want to be playing teamfights like an assassin, using your ult to dive onto enemy carries, hitting them with the CC, and one-shotting them with auto-attack combos, then dropping E's to stop their escapes. E on top of melee carries and yourself as you fight, so if they stay to fight you, they will be taking a lot of burn damage. For example, here, the enemy Camille ults onto the Shyvana, so Rizzhonel uses his E on himself to outdamage Camille, then use E long range to finish off escaping enemies, or create an area where squishy champs cannot walk through. Positioning is very important all game. He knows the limits of the champion, for example the lack of mobility and dashes, so he only takes risks he knows will work. If you're always jumping in randomly, you'll just get kited and die. Ideally, Rizzhonel only ever ults onto a carry, not onto a tank, but if you cannot do that and you're getting CC'd, use ult instead to escape. This is close to your only safety net, so Rizzhonel is constantly doing things that may look under-aggressive, but in reality he just knows the play is too risky for his champion. Here's a great example of a perfect fight. He starts off on the front line, baiting tank CC. He then finds a way to get onto the enemy carry. He does not waste ult if he can get onto them without using it, as it's great for following their kiting or flashes. He uses his high damage to burst them down, then turns to the next carry doing the same thing, and finally finishes off tanks as he gets through them quite fast with his build. Rizzhonel often joins fights late, partially due to his side lane focus, but also it lets him get really good flanks off, which are insane for backline access. The really interesting thing about it is, he doesn't really even want to join fights. He only ever wants to fight objectives, because he believes they're the most important, especially since Shyvana benefits extra from dragons. Here is the reason it can be better to just split push instead of join fights. Look at this level 14 Jax. He has 3 kills and is 40 CS up on our Shyvana. Who wins this? That's right, Shyvana E wins this fight. Champions cannot just stand there and auto-attack to out-DPS Shyvana. Rizzhonel makes them play the DDR minigame to dodge. At this point, we are late game. Shyvana has absolutely reached God mode, becoming one of the highest damage champions in this game, while now also buying some tank items to make her unkillable. Imagine you have a melee Vayne on your team who cannot die. Yeah, seems like a pretty nice late game fantasy. This is what you're playing for all game. Champion that can easily get unstoppable backline access, do a surprising amount of damage to a carry, and instantly end a fight in your favour. Fights from here on are easy work. If you can beat a Jax 1v1, then that really proves how strong the late game is. I'll give you his runes and items in a second, but first let me show you an insane TP Ignite Shyvana top that is building very weirdly, and also doing incredibly well at a 70% win rate so far this season. This ex-master player with a funny name is doing a Stride Breaker build. His early game is the same, AFK farming. This new guy goes even more all in on late game, playing Stride Breaker, full attack damage Shyvana. This is the best build for sticking on opponents, and it's very hard for a squishy champ to run away from you, as you have your ult dash and the Stride Breaker to cancel out 2 of their movement abilities or dodges. Here's his weird build. This is a high risk, high reward playstyle, so give it a try in solo queue as well. Back to our master player Rizzhonel for his perfected build. He always takes TP Flash so he can affect the map, and Flash is vital for safety, and here's the full skill order. He starts Door and Shield, Potions for sustain in lane. As I said, he's not ever going for early kills, he is AFKing, and these help him stay in lane. After, he rushes Tank Boots, Plated Steel Caps versus AD teams, Mercury Treads are vital versus high CC enemy teams. These are both great for his AFK lane dodging style. His first item, he gets Blade of the Ruin King. Statistically, this is his best first item for damage, and your mythic item is saved for second. That mythic is Kraken Slayer, once again giving you a ton of burst damage. After this, Rizzhonel gets Gargoyle Stoneplate. This gives him fake amount of tankiness in fights that is much more valuable than other tank items on Shyvana. He is jumping in, trying to burst enemies. This lets him survive long enough to get back on top of them, or use it to peel out of the fight. You should be about to end the game at this point, but if not, get more tank items like Thornmail, Spirit Visage, or if you need it, some Armor Pen. Here's the rune page he takes against hard matchups, for example fighters like Darius or Camille, for extra safety. And here is the page he takes against ranged or squishy tops for some extra damage at level 6 to get a kill. Thanks so much for watching, like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Check out my other similar videos here.